farmland still exists today. If anybody knows anything to the contrary, please let us know. They've all been burned or have been torn down, and we did our best to accurately find the locations, given the information we had from maps and secondary sources, as we already noted. But because of the number of acres to each farm, we're confident that we have at least a piece of each farm that we're going to show you tonight. So the next slide is that map, which we painstakingly changed like 5 times in the heat, no less. And as you'll see, there's 12 listed here, because one of the, quote, land area that he owned wasn't really a farm, and then it was pasture land. Yeah, it was pasture land. So this is our modern map, and this map is from circa 1969, and you might not be able to tell, but this area at the bottom there, that's HIA, that's the Harrisburg International Airport. And there's 12 farms that are on this map. Farms 11 and 12 are actually in the bottom right corner that you don't see here. So just imagine 11 and 12 are down here near Royalton and where the Sunset Golf Course is. Is everybody oriented okay with that now? Because we had to keep questioning ourselves and looking at this map over and over again. So Locust Grove, number 11, is at the foot of Sunset by Royalton. And Sunset, obviously, is Sunset Golf Course. If you've never been there, has anybody never been to Sunset Golf Course? Oh my gosh, please go. I was blown away. It's beautiful up there, absolutely gorgeous. So again, the locations listed are our interpretations based upon our site visits and sources today. So on to the first one. Keystone Farm. Moose, where are you? I'm looking at you. Yay, Keystone Farm. So this is an etching from about 1883, and this Keystone Farm is where present-day Penn State Harrisburg is, on West Harrisburg Pike, Route 230, next to Eagle Farm. And this was the farm that centered on the livestock, his Jersey cattle, his well-known Jersey cattle. And it was about 104 acres. So gorgeous. And I thought, oh wow, we see these steeples in all these photographs. And Nancy said to me, Heidi, they all had steeples. Yeah. So yeah, you can tell that I didn't grow up on a farm. So here's Keystone Farm now, as much as we can approximate it. So this is a view of what is called Penn State Harrisburg's Engineering Lab building. You can probably see that as you're driving by the entrance to Penn State Harrisburg on Route 230. And now on that hill there, we often see like, oh, I don't know, 5 deer grazing, because there's such a deer problem on our campus. So that's the Keystone Farm. The next one is Eagle Farm. And that, again, is another etching. And we were challenging this down here, and it says, consisting of 988 acres. And we thought, what? Wait, he only had about 1,400, but we think that that 988 referred to like what he owned at that time. So this etching is approximately 1918, I think is what we were saying. And this is along the West Harrisburg Pike near the railroad overhead bridge. So here's present day, what we were thinking. This is Eagle Farm, again, part of Penn State Harrisburg, but our housing on campus.
Heidi, the etching was really much earlier.
Oh, was it?
The barn
Okay.
here burned in 1918.
Oh, okay.
Do you
Oh,
want
the barn,
to,
yeah.
want to show them?
Yeah, I'll show you now. Sorry about that. Yeah, the barn burned in 1918. So this was just a portion of his 988 acres, which we already said that. Okay, so I think we're going to move on to some more of the farm buildings, and Nancy's going to take it back.
Okay, so this is Evandale Farm, and this is, of course, I swear Heidi gave me all the hard ones, but this is what confuses me, and I'll be honest. It was called the Evandale Farm, but it was originally the Stoner Farm and Cemetery, and those of you who know that we fixed the cemetery up, you know the Stoner Farm was there. They came there in the 1700s, actually, and built that property. So then James Young had to have owned it, and it was about 60 acres, a little less than 60 acres. But then Evandale owned it after that. So how did it become Evandale Farm when James Young owned it, when Evandale owned it after James Young? I'm not sure, but it was also part of Camp Meade, so there was a lot going on this farm. It was a large barn with 2 outbuildings, and they also burned in 1924. And the animals and crops burned with them. They suspected arson, and again, later became part of Camp Meade. At one point, it was owned, when James Young died, he left his son some of the property, and Red Secker Young owned it at the time when the barn burned. So this is what it is today. Of course, it is a stoner farmhouse and cemetery. And before that, it was the Old Stone Inn, Britannia Steakhouse, Treehouse Grill. It's right on 230. And both Heidi and I, when we got out of the car to take this picture, and we know that property, I'm familiar with that property. But can you imagine James Young coming back in time as you're seeing some of these farms, these beautiful farms, and then seeing what's there now? And that's probably the better pictures that we could take. I mean, it's a used car lot, there's low-income housing, it's really, it just looks sad to me.
I thought for sure we were gonna get smashed into by traffic because it's so busy there.
So, and it's been through a lot of people, but again, I have no idea how it was called Evandale. Now this is the one we looked at earlier that was down below the Oddfellows home or the Middletown home. This is Whitehall, and it's right on Harrisburg Pike. It had about 63 acres, and this is again where the Oddfellows home was, which is now Middletown home. Now it was down, of course, at the side. It wasn't exactly where the home was there. When I did some of the initial research, when I wanted to do this presentation, I found in the Middletown Area Historical Society, they didn't even know they had it, but they had a paper that 2 young women had done in Lower Dauphin, Gloria Harbold and Sandy Creasco. I don't know if anybody knows them. I couldn't find them anywhere. Their paper wasn't dated, but they had these 2 photos in. So this is actually a picture of Whitehall, the farmhouse, the farmstead, and the barn. And then they also had these pictures, which was the interior in the basement. So again, these are courtesy of Gloria and Sandy. And then this is, of course, Middletown home, but it was more.
We're gonna do
Okay. Well, hopefully it'll just come back on. Maybe it was probably just a little buzz or something.
It's time to
That's
refresh.
the overhead.
Oh, there we go.
Okay. So this is probably the one on the right is really probably where the farms were. Like we took it down below the Middletown home. We're switching back and forth. We thought we would make it more interesting.
I always get the farms that are Penn State Harrisburg. Okay, so this is Rosedale. Again, Lower Swatara Township, north of Whitehall on Rosedale Avenue. So that makes sense. This is about 128 acres. And this farm is what we can consider the beginning of Jednota. So this is present day. Again, one of those roads I thought for sure we're gonna get smashed into because there's traffic. This is not that far away from Sharp Shopper. So we decided to take a photograph of that area because we figured that it was as close to the farm as we were gonna get. And it is north of Whitehall Farm, and it became part of Camp Meade. Camp Meade is part of the Spanish-American War of 1898, and that whole area that is now present-day Penn State Harrisburg, a lot of that area was part of Camp Meade. In 1909, that land was sold to the First Catholic Slovak Union for Jednota, and Leon Brinzer owned that land for a while. Does everybody know where that is? Can you picture this? If you're at the Sharp Shopper and you go down that road, you see all these beautiful stone walls there. Okay, Nancy, now you're gonna talk about Youngsport that we have no pictures of.
Okay, and then we have Youngsport, which again, as Heidi said, we have no pictures of. This was located along White House Lane, west of Harrisburg Pike. And it was a small place wherein erected a number of houses, including a large tobacco warehouse. And you would think that this, I don't know, maybe this area is good for tobacco, but he had a huge crop of tobacco every year. This originally became part of the Hubley Pickle Farm, who grew cucumbers for the H.J. Heinz Company. And this is the location about where we thought it would be. And we don't know we don't know about the number of acreage, I don't think, for Youngsport. But it's now an open field.
Back to me again. All right, so leaving the pickle farm and jumping, oh, okay, this is Oak Lane Farm. Is everybody totally confused yet? Imagine us in our car in the heat trying to figure out where these farms were. So this is another one of those beautiful etchings. Thank goodness we have those. And it's really a shame there's no photographs because photography was invented. You know, it would have been more common after the 1850s. So maybe that's part 2, where we actually find photographs. We'll see.
I looked it up, the Brownie camera wasn't in full service till 1901.
Yeah, but they have daguerreotype, so I don't know, we'll see. We have a lead on maybe finding something for that. So this was Young's Homestead Farm in Lower Swatara Township. This became Jednota, where choice herds of Jersey and Alderney cattle were kept. It had 2 barns, you can see, pictured here. One for the fine bred cattle and the other for the fat stock, livestock that went to the butcher. This one was described as having closely mowed lawns, whitewashed fences, as all of his farms were, very well-kept gardens and orchards. And it was about 497 acres. Oh, sorry, no, 218 acres? Yeah. And this later became part of Camp Meade. So again, Penn State, Harrisburg, all the area that we know so well.
And this is the same farm, but I just like both pictures, so we put both pictures in.
Yeah, this one shows the cattle. It contained 2 barns again, and overhead there's a room where the feed was arranged and cut, which was run by steam. Corn cribs were arranged on each side of the loft with every convenience for the proper distribution of food. A large tank holding 1,400 gallons of water, I can't even picture that, was situated in the basement, and again, this later became part of Camp Meade. And the second building from the left is the chicken house. How do we know that? Nancy, how do we know that?
Because we found it in our research.
Because we found it in our research. So here's where we think present-day Oak Lane Farm might have been. This is the first time that I actually ever got to see this. This is that became Jednota Orphanage and is now the D&H Warehouse. Does anybody know where this is? You probably drive past it and didn't realize that. And there actually is a memorial there. So I was really honored to finally put those 2 things together in my head. The next one is Roland Farm. Again, still Lower Swatara Township because all of his farms were located contiguously. This is northeast of Oak Lane, about 140 acres, and it was sold as part of the land for the Jednota Orphanage. And we think that it was somewhere around here, unfortunately, parking area now near the Sharp Shopper. And almost done. Oh, Nancy, you're going to talk about Thorndale. So Thorndale is the next one. Etching again, because again, we don't have photographs. This was located on North Union Street, again in Lower Swatara Township, just beyond the Grandview Farm. It was now part of what is the Pennsylvania Turnpike. Unfortunately, it was torn down and it was smaller, about 56 acres. So we think this, and to our peril, we entered a parking lot that we probably weren't supposed to go into because now it's some type of a business. And we think that that is what was Thorndale Farm. This is now part of the Fruhoff industrial site and the Veolia water tower that is basically behind Penn State Harrisburg, if you can kind of picture that. Okay, now Grandview. Grandview Farm on North Union Street. Later it was the Herb-Alwyn Farm. And it was about 63 acres, and the lane into the farm was lined with locust trees. And you can actually see that in this beautiful etching. So guess what Grandview is? Ta-da! Who recognizes that? It is now across the street from what we now call Oak Hill Village, formerly Fry Village, on North Union Street. So that's the assisted living facility on the land surrounding it, and also the Emmaus Orphanage. So across the street was Grandview Farm. etchings, again, from a book that we have cited in our presentation. But this was also owned by Colonel Young, and this is at the foot of the Sunset Hill, present-day Sunset Golf Course, below Royalton. So if you can picture that on the map, it was about 141 acres. And we had a great time driving around the Sunset Golf Course, and you can see here that Locust Grove Farm now at the foot of the Sunset Farm near Royalton. And the first photo there on the left shows heel storage and rigging, and the second one on the right is closer to Royalton, below Seven Seas Marine. Later, it was the Emery A. Regal, am I pronouncing that right? Regal Farm, which was sold at public auction in 1975.
Does anyone remember the Regal Farm? Where was it, Charlie?
If you know where the railroad crossing is on 441,
Yeah,
as you're
yeah,
coming
yeah.
out of town, the farmhouse and the barn was there. You could make if you were going down toward Columbia, coming out of town, you could make a left there. There's a farm lane.
So is that above Sunset?
It was below, I mean,
was below, it was
Sunset
still
was up
below.
on the hill, and then this would have been down flat land. Plain.
We're laughing because
We originally photographed that direction.
yeah.
And then I said, Heidi, that can't be right. It has to be the other way because it has to be closer to Royalton.
Yeah.
Yeah. So what's the foot of Sunset, right? We're like, the foot of Sunset Farm was at,
But he's saying it was
North?
at the firehouse, so, or by that railway track. And do you remember the railroad track right
Yes, I
over
do.
this way?
Yes.
He means the one that was
Farmland
this
back
way.
there.
But I bet the first one was right then.
Yeah.
so above Sun, so,
There's still a farm back there.
yeah, I think we drove past it.
Yeah, we actually stopped and asked some people, but they
Yeah.
didn't know.
Yeah, there was a Mennonite.
My uncle
farm.
was a veterinarian, and he used
Oh.
to take care of some of their livestock, so.
Oh,
Plus,
okay.
he took care of the livestock at Jednota, too.
Really? Oh, wow. So wait, now what are we saying, that Locust Grove was north of Sunset or south of it?
I have to go look at the.
Yeah,
railroad
see, I'm so
tracks.
confused, okay.
Yeah, but there is a Locust Grove Road that's out in Londonderry Township that's on the other side of Sunset.
Well, this
It's-
is Londonderry
yeah, it has
Township.
to
It's
be
right
London.
over, it's like right
Yeah.
butted up to Londonderry Township.
Right.
Yeah,
on
but
the
the
edge.
Riggle Farm was down along River Road.
Okay. Moose has his hand up, yes, Moose.
That Locust Grove, that was Emery Waldo Regal, E.W. Regal,
Oh, Emery A. Regal Farm?
Emery Waldo.
Oh, okay.
What I know.
We'll talk to you after. Okay, so do you want me to just say that? So my favorite, other than Keystone, is Sunset Farm. This was located off Route 441, about 92 acres. And now it's the beautiful Sunset Golf Course and Park area. So actually gorgeous views of HIA from the top of that. And now back to the questions that we have about farms that weren't really, or land that wasn't really a farm. Round Top was one of those 14. Remember I quoted 14 farms earlier on from a newspaper. Round Top, we don't have a drawing of that. It was not a farm. It was a pasture, mountain land. In addition, James had about 80 acres of woodland in Northumberland County, and then a vacant property in Harrisburg when he died. So we're not sure where it was. It may have been off Schoolhouse Road, right off Vine Street, right? Isn't that where that is? So that's that. End of the farms. So what happened to Colonel Young? Well, on Friday, May 3rd, 1895, around 6:15 p.m., he was driving down Union Street and crossing the P&R Railroad track at Brown Street when his horse and buggy struck the rails with such force he was thrown and hit his head. A young man by the name of Palmer, also in the buggy, jumped out and was unhurt. By that evening, James felt better when Dr. Bowers visited again. However, he died on Saturday, May 4th, the next day, 1895, at 9:35 a.m., at about age 74, 2 months shy of his 75th birthday, probably from internal head injuries that he has sustained. And that information was reported in the Middletown Journal, Saturday, May 4th edition. So we show this photograph of him, probably about 10 years older than in that original photograph that we showed at the outset of our presentation tonight. So he is memorialized. He has the largest monument in the Middletown Cemetery. You can see it right from the road. You can't miss it. He's buried, and you can see on the photo on the right, next to his wife Elizabeth, so James on the left, I believe, yep, and Elizabeth on the right there. The Middletown Chronicle summed up James Young this way, quote, that he was a man of great executive ability is obvious. Stern and inflexible in guarding his business interests, he was nevertheless a man of generous heart and marked public spirit, freely aiding the really deserving, and never withholding liberal support to promising enterprises conducted by capable men. So I encourage you to go take a look at the cemetery plot, and I think we all pay him homage because he did so much for Middletown and the surrounding communities. So Nancy's going to talk
No,
about.
just go.
Oh, you want me? Okay. So one thing I sort of hinted at earlier, that we're not done with this research yet. We're still hoping to find some more evidence that can help us. It would be great to find some photographs. So where do we turn? Well, there was a big Chicago World's Fair held in May to October in 1893. He hadn't passed away yet. And the agricultural building at the 1893 World's Fair is pictured here. You can see the interior of that. And supposedly some photographs of his farms were sent to that. So as an archivist, I know those photos got to be somewhere, right? Hopefully somebody preserved them. So I'm still on the hunt for that kind of information, because if it's there, I want to find it. And that was reported in the Harrisburg Daily Independent in 1893. So we know that that was there. And then Nancy found this great receipt. You can see in the upper left-hand corner. Boy, whoever has stationery anymore, right? This is so awesome. It says Office of James Young, Middletown, PA. And it's probably hard to read it, but it says Middletown, PA, February 2nd, 1897. Received, and we weren't sure what that name is there, but it looks like Christian Stanborn, 2 years after James Young's death. Why is there a receipt 2 years after his death? Well, whoever the executor of his estate or whoever was managing his financial affairs signed this, and it says James Young, Estate Secretary. So we believe that someone else was still taking in monies on behalf of his estate. Unfortunately, the James Young Farms went up for public sale in 1905, according to the Redsecker Young Diaries. And this original receipt is held by the Middletown Area Historical Society. So if you want to go see the original, it's not that far away. And now, just a nod to some of our resources that we used. Quite a bit.
The reason we added these resources, I just wanted everyone to see, Heidi and I really didn't know anything about James Young, except a few articles, maybe we saw
Yeah.
some drawings, but we had to go out and find the information. So it's
Yeah.
not that hard to be able to do a presentation up here. You just sort of have to pull it together. And these are some of the resources.
Yeah, and we did not look at records in Harrisburg. Like, we didn't go look at deeds and things like that, so that's also something
Right, I
that
looked
we could
online,
do.
but I couldn't, they redone that whole deed and tax assessment system.
So one of the sources that has a lot of those etchings is that Historical Atlas of Dauphin County from 1875 on the left there. And there's another one reprinted in 1985 by the Dauphin County Historical Society. So a lot of these books are held by Penn State, or I think the Middletown Public Library might even have a few of these. I know the State Library in Harrisburg, which is beautifully renovated, by the way, and now open to the public. I encourage you to go take a look at that. The Biographical Encyclopedia of Dauphin County from 1896. Then there's the History of Dauphin County by Luther Kelker, 1907. Note the beautiful covered pages on the left. And then the Chronicles of Middletown, a really great resource. This is from, what year is that? 1940, thank you. Yeah, I didn't see that on the photograph. And then my book, Penn State Harrisburg, you've heard me talk about that many, many times. So I've tried to put together information about Colonel James Young. And then another book from that same publisher, Arcadia Publishing, Middletown Borough, which we have at Penn State Harrisburg also, by David Kagan and Edward William Sunbury from 2009. The Pride of Dauphin County, James Young, a paper by Gloria Harbold and Sandy Krishko that Nancy mentioned earlier, which is unpublished. And where is that housed? Do you know?
At the original Middletown Area
Oh,
Historical Society.
okay,
It's in
historical. Oh, great, it's a historical site. And then last but not least, an unpublished manuscript, the early Middletown and its settlers. Anybody ever heard of Virginia Schaefer?
Yes.
Yay, awesome. Well, we're keeping her history alive. Penn State Harrisburg has a copy of her manuscript that was never published, which I worked with the Middletown Public Library to have digitized by Penn State, and it's available for free online. It is a gold mine of genealogy, I have to say. But because it's unpublished, it's not been edited, so you always have to take everything with a grain of salt when it comes to the genealogical research. But Virginia Schaefer, goodness, bless her, she did so much to help preserve some of our history.
Years ago, she went around and did oral histories of all the older citizens in Lower Swatara Township in Middletown.
Yeah.
Those,
Yeah, almost, go ahead.
She lived by Alfred's Victoria.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, that's great. I had the pleasure.
which house, do you remember?
It's the white frame house. It's on the other side of the alley. You know where the alley is, where the stone house is? It's apartments now.
Yes.
And there's a
Big
lane
white
or a
house.
driveway that
That's
goes
on-
back. Then there's another frame house, that was the Lanes years ago, he was a lawyer. And then the Schaefer's house, so it's like it would be 2 doors up from Alfred's.
Oh, okay. On the same side as side
On
of
the
her-
same side.
Same side. Okay. Oh, we can find
Yeah,
it.
her husband was a lawyer, I believe.
Oh.
Yes.
Well, I had the pleasure of meeting her daughter. Her daughter was the one that came to me at Penn State Harrisburg and said, "I have my mom's original unpublished manuscript. Can you help me?" And that was, gosh, more than a decade ago. I don't know if her daughter is still with us, but we digitized it as is, and it is available off the Penn State University Library's website. So it's free and available to anybody who wants to look at it. And we also have a copy of it in the archives at Harrisburg.
I remember her when I was a child. She was very active in the St. Peter's Lutheran Church, which was right across the street, of course, from her house.
Virginia Schaefer,
Yeah.
or her daughter? Oh, okay. Yeah,
Did a
oh,
lot
great.
for Girl Scouts too.
Oh, wow. Bruce, yeah.
She had a son, Mike, who was an attorney in Middletown.
Oh, wow. Okay, wow. Yeah, I mean, thank you, Virginia and her family, for all that they contributed to the history, which would have been lost, right? Because there's not, I don't think there's anything that covers that much detailed genealogy.
No, I wouldn't know
Middletown.
the history of my house if it wasn't
Yeah.
for her. She did an interview with the resident that
Yeah.
lived there for 90 years.
Yeah, oral history is so important. So that concludes our presentation this evening. We'd be happy to take questions and comments from anybody. Yes? Do you want the microphone?
This is my story. My great-grandparents had a grocery store on Spring Street where the school administration building is now. It used to be the Church of God, and the house next door was their grocery store. And my grandfather was Dr. Schwartz, that lived across the street eventually. But when James Young died, my grandfather would have been 3, okay? When they had his wife died, he would have been 6, I guess. And then when they had the estate sale, he would have been about 13, okay? Now, I had this piece of furniture in my house. And the story is that my great-grandfather went to the sale, okay? And bought this piece of furniture. And my great-grandmother said, "I have 7 children. I don't need a piece of furniture like that. I need a bed or a chest of drawers." And she put it in the attic, okay? Which my grandfather took with him when he moved, and now it's in my house. But I was always told, do you know what house James Young lived in? Because he owned properties in town. You know, because I was always told that his house was where the cemetery starts, on Union Street. When you go up Union from the square and it turns, there's
So
a
it's-
big red brick house.
That was like Grandview, that would be Grandview Farm. But I thought, he called the homestead Oak Hill Farm, right?
Well, I don't know, but I think that's where the piece of furniture came. But I didn't know with all these farms, how many, where he actually lived,
Yeah, that's a great question.
you know.
One of the interesting things I read is they had one drive horse. So that meant for his buggy, there was one horse. And he was